What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Mikas and Sukas. And of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House. Today, I have with me former congressional candidate out of Texas, Stephen Orozco. And we are going to be talking about this breaking news story that just came out last night from Joe Biden. But before we get started, how you doing, Steve?
I'm doing well. You know, I have the quarantine roughness that has settled in now for the past 40 days. But, you know, I'm grateful for many reasons. I know there's a lot more people out there struggling for more, serious situations. So how about you?
That's for sure, man. The quarantine roughness is real out here. You don't, I mean, I appreciate my barber. He get on my damn nerves sometimes because he's extra, but I love my barber. I've always appreciated but I have not appreciated my barber more than that text, than the day I got that text. Yeah, man, I can't cut anymore.
Right.
Over. I was like, hold up, what you mean, bro? We don't got a date for that. What you want me to do with my? Because you genuinely, I don't know how if every man goes through this, but at least I know black men with a specific type of hair texture. Okay, when we hear you can't get your hair cut for a week past, the settled date that you normally get your hair cut, that's like traumatizing. But then he's like, we don't know we're gonna be able to get you crispy again. Y'all, that's some devastating words. It's almost as devastating as hearing that you thought that Joe Biden was going to nominate a woman, a woman of color or a black woman for VP, and he's decided to change that commitment. So let's check this article out real quick. He said, so the article this is from News One Media, I covered as well. It says, in a move that is sure to stun some of his most ardent supporters, Joe Biden said on Monday that he would not commit to choosing a woman of color to be his vice presidential running mate. The moment of candor ran contrary to the presumptive narrative that Joe Biden's intent was on selecting a black woman to be his running mate. Biden's interview with Pittsburgh's KDKA commanded attention when he said that he would readily have Michelle Obama as his running mate in a heartbeat. But it was his comments later in the interview that may have raised the antenna of some of the black voters who pushed Joe Biden to victory in early primaries. When Joe Biden said he would stay true to his vow to pick a woman candidate, but that's it. His exact quote was, "I'll commit to that, be a woman." Okay, that's for some reason. I don't know why I was surprised that read like that, but this is Joe Biden, so we have to keep that in mind as we're reading. I'll commit to that, be a woman, because it is very important to that my administration look like the public, look like the nation, Biden told KDKA. And there will be committed that there will be a woman of color on the Supreme Court. That doesn't mean there won't be a vice president as well. I'm only conversationally fluent in bullshit. So Stevens, can you clarify what the hell that means to me, please?
I mean, that means that he's still going back and forth with his advisors of like, what will the VP VP pick look like? Honestly, I remember in one of the last debates, he mentioned that there will be a woman VP. He didn't emphasize whether it would be a black woman or a woman of color. And then there was also the conversations that the Supreme Court pick will be most likely a woman of color. So I've seen a lot of analysts basically go back and forth saying that he laid out those two possibilities, and it's going to be likely that if he picks a VP, it probably won't be a black woman or a woman of color, because he's going to focus on the Supreme Court pick being a woman of color or a black woman. So I just feel like this is more about like testing the waters, putting it out there, see how the response is.
See, if I recall correctly, he had made the suggestion that's going to be a woman of color multiple times, actually. I know he committed to the Supreme Court woman of color thing pretty quickly, but he's basically asserted this because it wasn't just the last debate. Even when the race was full, he had been saying that he was going to nominate a woman of color. But I would say, and you would probably agree, for all intents and purposes, he at least led the public to believe that this is the way he was leaning, right? And probably in order to pander for the black vote specifically. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that he's going back and forth with advisors the way that you might think. I think that he's made his decision and he's trying to soften the blow. I think that the decision is probably going to be Elizabeth Warren. I don't think Amy Klobuchar can bring in enough by their logic, right? I don't think that Amy Klobuchar can bring in enough.
Mm-hmm.
However, they believe that Warren can bring in progressives, although I don't believe that Warren can bring in progressives to the degree that they think she can.
Right.
Now, the only sell that they would have for a Warren, for anyone, is this idea that she's basically getting picked to be the next president, right? Because of who Joe Biden is and his age and honestly his cognitive decline. And for some people that may be enticing. For me, that's terrifying. But I would love to know what thoughts are on that.
Well, I mean, I definitely have been trying to put myself in their shoes regarding like what's the direction they're trying to go, considering that Joe Biden will most likely be a one-term president, just because, you know, we're having a very similar Reagan Alzheimer's situation setting up with him, where his cognitive decline, it means that, you know, one term he'll have to step down, and that VP pick becomes so crucial. That's why I've been paying attention a lot to how Warren has been phrasing herself around the Biden support. Before she endorsed him, she was praising some of his like decisions and comments and everything. And because Amy Klobuchar is not going to motivate a lot of people to want to come out and vote. I actually honestly believe that this is going to be probably the whitest election cycle as far as like turnout. As far, you know, we you know, 2008 and 2012, the reason why it broke, you know, records was not just because of President Obama being, you know, Black and mixed himself. It's just because of the progressive change that he alluded to.
He ran a hell of a campaign, and people really don't give him enough credit for it. I mean, we talk about the neoliberal that he became, but we can't. If you go back and look at those tapes, man, he was roasting Hillary.
Right.
Like he was introducing bold change, like policy. It wasn't just about hope and change. People fell in love with the policies. That was the way he was able to pitch himself. I mean, let's be honest, as being the what do they call it? The what is it? The something minority?
Model minority?
Model minority. There you go. He pitched him, you know, he's Ivy League, no tattoos, you know, clean shaven, you know, well-spoken wife who's also successful, no background, like he's even African.
He wrote about a little cocaine and some weed smoking, you know, made it relatable, all that.
Yeah, for the young folks. So he ran a good campaign, and that's what got people out, was the hope that he was going to see those policies through. Now, granted, him being Black probably helped him get 99% of the vote. Is that what what voted for him in the general election? Like,
as far as Black and brown voters, yeah, he definitely got over 85% of that vote just based on his identity.
I know but with Black, I know he got like literally almost 99%. It was crazy because he got like 93% during the Democratic primary, which is also, you know, given Hillary and Bill Clinton's history, is also crazy. But I think that we won't see the type of turnout, and I feel like it's ironic considering how much they basically push this identity politics nonsense down our throat for the last year. Oh, this is the most diverse race ever. Oh, look at these people. Kamala Harris is announcing on Martin Luther King Day. The audacity, first of all. And then Cory Booker announces on the first day of Black History Month. The audacity, second of all. So like they push these identity politics down out there. Julian Castro, same thing. They push him. But at the end of the day, though, out of all three of those candidates, I would say that Elizabeth Warren probably ran a similar campaign, but she got pass after pass after pass after pass after pass by the progressive movement, even though she was clearly lying. But, you know, with Kamala, Cory Booker, I would even add Tulsi Gabbard being a woman of color, to a certain degree, Andrew Yang and Julian Castro, they all kind of drew the short end of the sticks as far as that's concerned. Do you believe that may have some effect on the outcome of this, because of how the other people of color in this race were treated, as far as their disproportionate or disparate treatment compared to somebody like Elizabeth Warren, who also claimed to be progressive, who we knew was in fact not?
Well, Elizabeth Warren had one of the like more smart strategies in the beginning that was able to gain so much support because she had aligned herself with the grass tops activist movement from the social media, the ones.
You said grass tops? Is that what you called it?
Yeah,
I like that. I like that, grass tops.
It's not original. I forgot where I picked it up from. It was like an article, but basically saying is like all the folks that do the groundwork, the grassroots folks are not the same as the grass tops, which are the people who have the massive social media following, whether it's like, 10,000, 20,000, the ones that
It's
are
true.
always doing the organizing work for, local campaigns, state campaigns, the ones that have their own nonprofit set up. So the main one that got behind her very early on was a fairly new organization focused on voting for Black women. It was called Black Women Forward. Well, it is called Black Women Forward. So they aligned with Warren. They got behind her. They've been giving her the push, months in. But then when she started to walk back some of those progressive policies that she said that, she was going to be supporting, people started to go the other way on her. Now that Grass Tops organization kept supporting her all the way through. And that might be appealing to Joe Biden because he may have the older Black voter like on lock after South Carolina showed him that, but he still wants to appeal to younger, Black and brown demographics. And I think he may feel that Elizabeth Warren could do that
I
because
don't
there's
think
nobody
that he
else.
wants the Black demographic. I don't think he feels like he needs it anymore.
Right.
Because the primary is over. And unfortunately, we primarily occupy red states, at least in the way that we can affect the outcome of any swing state. We primarily occupy red states. And I'm gonna be honest with you, from what I've seen and from what I've been reading and from what I've been hearing, after how the Democratic Party has treated Bernie Sanders out in the open, and this is a factor that I don't think they accounted for in 2020, which is first, Black and brown people really didn't know who Bernie was in 2016 because of the suppression. Right? They weren't paying that much attention because, let's be honest, we don't really have the time to, depending on what your situation is. Now we fast forward. Now everybody knows who Bernie Sanders is. He was the most popular person in the nation. Then you have you sprinkling those Yang, Tulsi, and Marianne Williamson supporters. And they saw in plain sight the election basically be stolen away from him and rigged in every possible fashion, from the media to the DNC logistics. And so do you believe that there may be some backlash when that may come into the form of either voting for Trump, a mass exodus, or sitting out of the presidential nomination, even though they may vote for local offices, or just sitting out altogether because of some of that resentment they may have towards the DNC after being now paying attention to the person who's offering them all these promises and then seeing the nomination basically be snatched from under them to be replaced, of course, by alleged rapist and a demented old man.
Right. Well, I definitely feel that, I'm part of I'm not going to vote for the presidential election this year. 4 years ago, I wrote in Bernie because, first of all, I'm in Texas. So we were not in any way close to win Texas for a Democratic presidential candidate. So my writing was purely symbolic. Then the Electoral College vote did the work that it did for Trump. So I feel that at this point, the Democratic Party, like I said earlier, this is probably the most whitest election that we've had in our lifetime, because it seems like they're focusing on those blue collar states that Trump betrayed with the jobs and with just the overall promises that he hasn't delivered on. And they're hoping that that's going to help them get, on the Biden side very easily.
Man, it's crazy because Biden has not shown any inclination that he is going to do something different than he has done. He celebrated all those trade deals.
Right. And they're really going off of the, hey, let's just beat Trump. Their big rallying cry is let's beat Trump. And that's the reason why.
And let's be more xenophobic than Trump.
Right. And that Chinese ad was troubling. But definitely the 45, 35 and younger vote is probably going to be a low turnout. It's probably going to be the lowest turnout since it might be the lowest turnout since before President Obama was elected. Because as we know, the Gen Z and the millennial generation are the most diverse generation in this country. We are more mixed. We are more Black and brown. So when we don't see,
and we are the dominant voting demographic. So if we don't see ourselves represented, we're not going to.
And not necessarily just see ourselves represented, because we're also a very well-informed generation. Is like, if we don't see the policies, because at the end of the day, 35 and under and Black and brown 35 and under was overwhelmingly voting for Bernie, and they're not voting for Kamala or Julian or Booker because they weren't supporting the policies that they knew Bernie was put. So it's not just a diverse generation looking for a Black and brown candidate. It's also a diverse generation looking for a progressive agenda.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I was going to say that too. Somebody asked me, I was on Fault Lines this morning with Nixon, and he asked me roughly like, how do you feel about the prospect of a woman of color? Does it offend you that you may not? My thing is, I don't just want a woman of color. See, the measure of our society our the altruism or evolution of our society as far as how we view each other, right? As valuable, as equitable, and
Mm-hmm.
having shares in this influence is when we don't even have to mention the fact that this is a woman of color or a
Mm-hmm.
black male or whatever. And all we see is the policies that they're
Right.
putting on the table. So we're not over criticizing them because they're women of color, or we're not under criticizing someone because they're white, or under criticizing someone using their race to deflect away from, those real policies. When we can say, like, that's one of the things I loved about Tulsi, right? Her being a woman of color was like the last thing ever mentioned, even though she's literally indigenous.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so policy focused that, and for her personally, she didn't want to be kind of have her identity weaponized in the way that the Democrats have been doing lately, that
Right.
she was just so policy driven. And when we can finally get past she's a black woman, she's a Polynesian woman, she's an Asian woman, he's a black guy, like, and just say, hey, these policies are amazing,
Mm-hmm.
period. This is the
Mm-hmm.
person who should be leading. And that be it. That's the true measurement of our evolution when it comes to how we are viewing these other races and treating these other races institutionally. But until then, I don't want to hear about your faux attempts to try and placate us by saying, oh, well, look, at least you have somebody who looks like you. And I don't
Right.
care about that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm
We're
not looking
familiar
for
with
an
tokenism.
avatar.
We're familiar with
Yeah.
tokenism at this point. We are very fluent in tokenism, and we recognize it. We're tired of tokenism. So we want policy. The Democratic Party from the top has shown us that they will do everything that they can to remove the progressive movement out of the way, and
Yeah.
then just force feed us nothing but nice words, and we're not Trump.
100%. We got a super chat from Sean Brock. Thank you very much. Do we want another black mascot for corporate power? Would Kamala be any different than Obama? She's probably worse. Oh, she's absolutely worse. I mean, look, Barack Obama treated us like that, and he was a human rights attorney prior to being president. Imagine what a damn prosecutor would do.
Right.
It would be even worse.
Right.
I have a question for you, though. So I think this is also representative of a bigger problem within the Democratic Party that we've seen over and over again. I had Nina on my show. She's talked about this. I talk about this pretty often. Bree has even talked about this. We just saw once again the Democratic Party pander. They locked up the older black vote in the primary so far. And now that they don't need them anymore, immediately pivot. In Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, nonetheless, where we know Pennsylvania is kind of a weird state where if you get enough of the Rust Belt rural side, and Pittsburgh's kind of like that in between when it comes to that type of demographic.
Right.
But you can win Pennsylvania without dominating the black vote, and also under the assumption, of course, that most of the black vote at least will go to Joe Biden. So we're seeing this pivot once again, which I think is worth acknowledging, that you women, black women, for y'all to be the backbone of the party, how come y'all keep getting the shaft?
Right. I feel that, this is obviously a historical issue when it comes to women in places of power and influence, that they usually relegated to the background and not able to become, the front person, right? That's why everybody was so excited about Hillary's campaign, because they were finally going to have that image. At this point, I'm all about more women running for office. And of course, since 2018, we have seen an increase of women running for office, women of color and black women running for office and winning office. So we're going to continue to see that trend. So we're going to see that glass ceiling being broken. Now, it's very difficult to break the highest ceiling, which is the Oval Office, because that's where the concentration of power and influence is going to be. That's where they're going to do everything to rig it in order to avoid it. The thing about the Democratic Party is that President Obama was their top best all-time politician. Like, if this was wrestling,
100%.
If this was wrestling, he was The Rock. He was the peak of their Attitude Era. He was the peak of everything that they needed in order to rally the Democrats to vote.
And can I say that if this was wrestling, Trump would probably be Stone Cold Steve Austin?
I mean, I'm an Austin fan, but
hey, look, man,
he's Vince
McMahon.
He
put on a show. Oh man, he's Vince McMahon.
He's Vince McMahon.
Hey, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good comparison, honestly.
And that's the thing, is like what the Democrats need is a Stone Cold, because Stone Cold was about throwing up that middle finger, right? He was about testing, and he was the face who behaved as a heel. For those who don't know, the heel is like the villain in wrestling talk, and the face is the good guy in wrestling talk. So that was the whole thing about Austin, is that they cheered for him as a good guy, but he kept behaving as the bad guy. And that's why
And
I
even when
say,
he was a good guy, it was kind of murky. Like
right,
you didn't know whether he was a good guy or a bad guy, but you just
right,
couldn't help but cheer for him regardless.
right. And the thing about Bernie, when I fit him into this political narrative with like comparing to wrestling, is that he was never going to be that guy, because as soon as he dropped out, he did it exactly what he did in 2016, is go ahead and endorse Biden like he did, Hillary. Now he's
Yeah.
going to start, asking supporters to support, you know what I mean? So it's like he
Bernie
wasn't going to
reminds
be
me
that
of
guy.
John Cena.
Yes.
Because like he has to be all wholesome. He don't
Right.
cuss like that. He gotta,
Mhm.
meet the kids, and everybody just
Mhm.
expects John Cena to have this very specific and marketable persona, which
Mhm.
is by design when they realized how marketable he was. But obviously, Stone Cold Steve Austin, especially from back in our day, Stone Cold didn't care about that. But I think that was one of the things that was always more appealing about Steve Austin, and I think
Mhm.
that that's one of the things. I would say that probably totally falls into the Steve Austin category, because all the middle fingers that she gave to the establishment this
Oh
year.
yeah, with the whole Hillary Russian agent stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when she was talking to this conference in Vegas, and she was like, I mean, these people, like the Democrats want to blame Republicans and Republicans want to blame Democrats, and she's like, fuck that shit. Like, can we talk about what's real for once, like for at all? And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my god, wait a minute, hold up, but what not? I mean, she's in the military, so I guess I should have expected it. But
Right.
it's just that's just the type of politician a lot of people are trying to tell. Now, let's be honest, right? If that was coming from a white guy, same age, same background, same credentials, I'm under the firm belief that she would have been the front runner,
Right.
right? Because people would have just seen her as a young Bernie.
Mhm.
But now our society really has to grapple with this white savior complex issue that we have. And I
Right.
think that has a lot to do with the sexism that and just the implicit racial bias
Mhm.
that happened in Tulsi, right? People
Mhm.
hyper scrutinize her. And I would say to a degree, right? Let's compare Cory Booker and Julian Castro to Warren. Did Warren really run a different campaign? She faked like she wanted Medicare for all, just like they faked like they wanted
Right.
Medicare for all.
Right.
But they were hyper scrutinized. She had a history of betraying the progressive movement and not standing by her words. So did Cory Booker. Julian Castro had less of that actually because
Mhm.
of his specific position before.
Mhm.
It was kind of hard to peg where he was standing on the liberal scale, although, if you're progressive, you should be able to tell. But
Right.
the problem was, how can you see through Julian Castro so quickly, but not see through Elizabeth Warren?
Right. Right.
And there's only one explanation. So because they were both getting propped up by the media, and I would even make an argument that at a certain point Warren was getting attacked in the beginning more than Julian Castro was. Julian Castro was getting lifted up.
She
Didn't
was.
matter.
And that's when she started
So
pulling back on the progressive policies. But
that's true.
I would like to just at least give one note of hope for people out there, because this presidential race is going to be like another 6 months. It's going to frustrate us, and people are going to continue to wonder how we're going to change things. And I just want to just let everybody look at our example here in Houston, specifically Harris County. Harris County is very blue, but it's still controlled by the establishment Democrats. But because 2018, we had a blue wave start, we have currently she was 27 when she won, so she must be 29, I believe, right now. County Judge Nina Hidalgo. She
Wow.
is a
I
Colombian
love
immigrant.
female judges, man.
She's a
They're the
Colombian
best.
immigrant. She's a Colombian immigrant who stunned everybody and won because of the blue wave that hit. And this is the highest office in the county, because the county commissioner's court is the one that handles all the money that comes in from the state, from the federal down to the state.
Wow.
And so she is the authority and like what happens, like if they're going to construct
How did
something,
they
build
let
something,
that slip?
because they didn't think she was going to win. Because like this is 2018, people didn't know that the blue wave was
That's
coming.
true. That's very true.
So
I think that's how a lot of them slipped in, is because people thought that, in unsuspecting positions and unsuspecting locations,
right, in
people were able to slip
2018,
through.
we also
That's true.
had all of the judges that ran for office that were Black women. They all won as well. So we have
Didn't
had
that
a
black
shift.
DA win in Pennsylvania too, in Philadelphia, something
I
like
believe
that?
so.
Yeah,
Yes.
progressive DA won. Yeah.
So right now, Texas being as red as it is, Governor Abbott being a white supremacist, trying to open up the state, he's been the main force resisting against the county judge, Nina Hidalgo. So they're like budding. They're budding. They're
Man,
budding
he
and they're
gonna lose
budding.
that every time, damn near. You can't beat a judge, not with the executive office, because they can just
Right.
overturn everything you do if you fuck up.
Right. So because of her early leadership in the coronavirus outbreak here, we've been able to say that, for example, I'm here 40 days now, 40 days quarantine. They shut things down 6 weeks ago because she's not listening to the local establishment Democrats as much as like the Republicans either. She's just focusing on the local activist groups that have been in the nurses and the healthcare.
She's listening to the right people.
She's listening to the right people. And so when I tell people some hope for this presidential election, it's like, I'm not going to vote for Biden or Trump. I'm still going to be in that voting booth, voting down the ballot for the local stuff. So you
say that again.
Because guess what happens during presidential primary season? These presidential candidates need to come to your county and talk to your county party and your county folks. So if you put the right people in, you can start flexing some power. And that's what we need to do.
Exactly. People need to understand the benefits of organizing and getting out and voting for those local candidates, man. The county, let me tell you something. So in Miami, a lot of our judges are women now, a lot of them, and they're very young women. And it was because of their unique experience that in their different mindset that they were actually able to save Florida from a huge lawsuit, class action lawsuit, because they legalized marijuana medicinally, but the cops were still pulling people over for damn dime bags and throwing them in jail and trying to charge them. And their excuse would be, oh, well, the car smelled like weed. However, because of the marijuana being medicinally legalized, bro, I could have smoked in my house. And I'm sitting in the passenger seat of my friend's car. And that's why it smells like weed. But if you saw a Percocet bottle with someone's name on it or something like that, are you allowed to search the car? No, because it's legal. So it's the same logic. So the women judges kind of like one by one were like dismissing every single case that came down the pipeline. For marijuana charges. And it was like somebody was about to bring a major class action lawsuit, and I think they were able to settle out of court. But if they had prosecuted all of those illegitimate cases, it could have been a lot worse for Florida, because they would have had to pay the ticket. So like that type of youth and experience combined with a willingness to try something new is like what is really, once again, it saved the taxpayers from footing the bill there. And so I like that. That's just one example. County commissioners, like you said, that's a big deal. The mayor of the city is half and half. Sometimes they have a lot of power. Sometimes they're just glorified city council members.
Not ours. Ours sold out to Bloomberg when it came in, and then he switched to Biden.
Of course. But I agree, man. I'm glad you brought that up. So get out. Don't let people bully you into thinking that there's a bigger lesson at play with the general election for the presidential election. It is, are we going to continue to keep rewarding sociopathic behavior? And that's what it comes down to. Like, is there going to, because I don't believe the Democrats considered the loss to Trump a negative consequence. They have never accepted accountability for that. They've deflected and blamed and deflected and blamed. And so they just lost twice to that, or they're going to lose twice and it's because of them. It's their fault that they keep losing. And I think if they lose twice, they'll get the picture. But if they screw up the third time, I think it might really be over for the elite Dem apparatus after this one. But it could be completely dissipated if they lose again.
I mean, it's definitely sociopathic behavior. It's definitely cognitive dissonance, right? And I feel that they would never say, like, you know what? We made the wrong decision. This is our fault. No, they're going to always find a scapegoat. So they're going to find the scapegoat. They're going to start with you and I and everybody else that said, we're not voting for Biden or Trump. And 4 years later after that, if they lose another election and we didn't vote for them because they offered the same corporate establishment corrupt candidate, then they're going to blame us again. They're going to keep doing the cycle, because the thing about them is that they're always doing it from a comfortable position. Just like Nancy Pelosi right now is at her house with her $24,000 fridge and all the nice expensive ice cream. You know what I mean?
People you think people were mad about a $24,000 fridge? Hold up, bro. Have you ever came back with a grocery cart full of meat and not had enough room in your fridge? Hell yeah, I'm pissed about $24,000 fridge when you can't even give us $1,200 a month for this damn pandemic. Hell yeah, I'm pissed.
Which brings up the other point. Make sure that you call in your local Congress people to support the $2,000 a month and the cancellation of rent and mortgage that's being proposed by Ilhan Omar and some of the other progressives. Because support
the one from Rashida Tlaib and Pramila Jayapal, not the Ro Khanna one. Ro Khanna's is like decent, but it's only for like 3 months after we return back to regular unemployment, but they can cook those numbers
right
immediately. Right. So like when they decide they want to stop giving us what's the word? Aid, excuse me. So then if you go with Rashida's, because this is seemingly becoming a pattern with Ro Khanna, by the way, because I'm covering on another segment today. This is like the third time he's done something like this, where somebody introduces very progressive piece of legislation that's people-centered, right? It's not supposed to benefit anybody but us, with no strings attached. He introduces a worse version of that legislation, and then it gets made like it makes the mainstream media headlines. And so Rashida offered the $2,000 a month in 2015, February 15th or 16th. And then 2-3 days later, Ro Khanna comes out with the same thing, but didn't co-sponsor Rashida Tlaib's. But it was more limited. He worked with Tim Ryan to get it done, so that's not a good sign. And I would go with the legislation that was introduced by the two women in Pramila Jayapal and Rashida Tlaib, who are not taking corporate money, versus two people that I know for a fact take corporate money. So like it's problematic. He did the same thing with Tulsi introduced that emergency UBI bill on March the 12th before anybody even thought that we were going to be in the situation that we're in. Maybe not you, because I think you might have already been in it, but nobody else knew that we were going to quarantine. But Tulsi kind of saw this coming. She had been talking about it since January. So she introduces that legislation. Ro Khanna introduced that means-tested UBI for the one-time payment, which is obviously more expensive because it's more bureaucratic. So it's becoming a pattern, but I'd be interested to know why you think, once again, are we seeing this pattern of the women, especially, I don't think it's coincidence that they're women of color, but they're being revolutionary on this issue. And yet, and that's what we want, right? We've been saying we want people to take the lead and that we'll reward them by showering them with praise. But we're not seeing that happen. And I feel like there should probably be somebody held accountable here. But I'm curious about what your opinion is regarding that.
I mean, it's difficult to hold anybody in Congress accountable because that requires everybody to pay attention to exactly what they are doing. And right now, with everybody going through the situation with the pandemic, you have the thirds right now. 1/3 is unemployed, over 22 million. You have another third that is, working from home. And then you have everybody else who's just trying to scrap up with the gig economy, the essential workers as well, who are exposing themselves. So it's kind of hard to like pay attention to like who is doing what, because the headlines are everything everybody catches. So they'll see the Ro Khanna bill on the headline, like $2,000 a month, proposed by Congressperson, and they will never see, because like the control of the timeline feed is real, the control of the Google searches and the news reels is very real, and we're not able to know who is up to what because the attention span is so quick. We need to move on to the next thing, and people are tired. So it really takes a lot of us to, especially us in this independent, what you could call renegade media that we're a part of, that we're not with the establishment media, the mainstream media, and we have to continue to like highlight these folks who are really doing the work, like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who were just calling out on the what was it?
Well, AOC hasn't spoken about Rashida Tlaib's. That's what's weird about it. Like, and that was frustrating to me too, because she spoke this morning talking about, they keep promising us there'll be something new in the next bill. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, I know this might be going out on a limb, but you're a legislator. You can literally just introduce your own bill and everybody would be paying attention to heartbeat. Everybody, because you're AOC. So now whenever they keep messing up, you let them mess up 3 times, you talked about it, he's like, I gave you your chance. Now I'm gonna stand up and be a leader. She would have a lot more respect for me if she would do that, because I've seen Rashida do it. I saw Tulsi do it to a degree. I saw Ro Khanna do it to a degree. We even see Tim Ryan do it, Pramila Jayapal. So where's AOC at? Because Ilhan co-sponsored Tulsi's, Pramila Jayapal introduced their bill, but AOC has been nowhere to be found here. And that's a little frustrating to me.
Well, that's going to have to come up soon, right? Because now after that, they addressed the small business loan bill that they just focused on fixing up, and they're going to pass. Now we're going to pivot to, hey, what are we doing? Because we still have another month at least of quarantine and business being shut down. So like what, AOC is going to have to come out with support of the Rashida Tlaib bill or the version that Ro Khanna bill, and then we're going to have to talk about that one.
Yeah, exactly. Not because. So my thing is, because she has not introduced really anything for her entire for this entire congressional session, which
Mm.
she's only been a congressman for one term. So that's fine. Maybe you feel like your voice can be used in other ways, like maybe utilizing your mandate to bolster progressive legislation. However, in situations like this, with a mandate like she has, if you're not going to use your mandate now, then when the hell else can we count on you to use it? The reason we elected you, or that district elected you, was for that. When moments like these, whether it be the crash of 2008, and you got to speak up against Obama bailing out the corporations, then whether it be for the pandemic, whether it be during this election regarding election integrity issues that we have seen, like in Texas, where she acknowledged voter suppression and then backtracked, or whether it be like this pandemic during a quarantine where clearly UBI is the answer, amongst giving grants to these small businesses. Stop trying to force them to take loans while you're giving fucking money to corporations. Like these are the issues that you got picked to speak up for, even if you couldn't pass legislation on these issues.
Yeah.
And so, but you can introduce the legislation to show like, okay, so my mandate and my voice and my time wisely. Democratic establishment, it's your move. Explain to the people why you will not do what's best for them.
I feel at this point, AOC, because of her profile, she plays it extra safe with everything that she's gonna do moving
Can't
forward.
do that. That's how you lose your mandate.
I mean, that's what we're seeing, right? This is what we're seeing. I feel that until the progressive wing doesn't expand in Congress, like after this election cycle, we'll see how many more progressive congressmen and women we have in there. We probably won't see any more, like much more bolder than we have seen so far for, some of these viral video posts and moments that they have in Congress or interviews. But as far as like pushing and being aggressive on the mandate, I feel like it's not going to happen until we have a larger progressive wing in Congress.
I guess, yeah, maybe. But my thing is, we have now more progressives in Congress than we have ever had, and all these people also, coincidentally enough, for the most part, people of color, which is even more remarkable because of the experience that comes with that, not necessarily just because of their color. So, and you would once again figure that, okay, you understand what it's like to deal with some of these circumstances that we're seeing right now. You understand how frustrating it feels to look at Capitol Hill, the people who are taking your tax dollars every paycheck, and see them they're not stagnant. It's worse than stagnation. They're actively working to uplift corporations and oppress everyone else, including small businesses. And so when you get to that position, I feel like you have nothing to lose. Most of these people, except for Ro Khanna, like he's in a safe blue district, but he's not necessarily in a safe district because another Silicon Valley Democrat against him. But for the most part, these people are in safe districts as far as their primary is concerned, and they're also definitely in safe districts as far as the Republican challenger may be concerned. So you have almost nothing to lose. You're a one-term congressperson. You're retired. You're good for the rest of your life once you win Congress one time. So just do what you have to do. If you pay political consequences for that, I promise you they will only be short-term. You will be forever uplifted by the progressive movement.
Right. There's a leap of faith that these progressives need to take at some point, because when we're looking at these turnout numbers for the presidential and how people are going to start staying home, I was looking at the numbers that there was a Gallup poll that was conducted in December that 28% people identified as Democrat, 28% identified as Republican, and 44% identified as independent. And those are the ones who are majority staying home and not participating because they no longer see a progressive agenda being pushed. I feel that, and I agree with you, is that somebody has to be bold enough in these quote unquote safe districts for themselves, come out aggressive for the progressive policy, and watch those independent voters come out to bat for them whenever it's time to elect them.
All right. So before we go, I'm going to read this last super chat by Adam Charlton. Thank you very much for the super chat. How do you see yourself voting in November, Niko? I am undecided yet. The Green Party is pulling some shenanigans. So I don't know if I'm going to reward that nomination because I don't reward bad behavior. I'm pretty consistent about that. I think that they need to be incentivized to change too. I might write in the candidate. I just know that I am absolutely going out to vote for those local candidates in my state legislature as well, because they have more effect on the outcome of my life than not for the good or for the bad. See, in a situation like Stevens was, their mayor or their judge, stepped in and had them quarantined early, and they're ahead of the curve now. Whereas in Miami, we was knee deep in spring break when everybody else is quarantined. So you gotta take the good and the bad with it. But I know that I have more of a direct outcome or a direct effect on the outcome of local elections, and that has more a direct outcome on my life. So, what about you, Steve?
I mean, I'm definitely going to be skipping the presidential race. I'm not going to vote in it. I'm not even going to write in Bernie because to me, 4 years ago, I wrote in Bernie as a statement. But this time, because of Bernie's decisions, I felt that he threw away all his political capital that he had. He could have really played the game with people that always like to talk about politics with his supporters and push for at least Medicare for all. If he would have had Joe Biden say, all right, I'm gonna do Medicare for all, so that way we could get some more of your supporters, that would have been something. But I'm probably just gonna skip over that and focus on the local elections. It would have been huge, but so I'm just gonna be that protest vote, no vote on the presidential election, and I'm gonna focus on local and most of all just uplift the social justice initiative and agenda that I've always supported, for Black and brown folks. Because right now, Black and brown folks are the ones being most affected by this virus, and they're the essential workers on the front lines. They're the healthcare workers on the front lines, and they're the people
Black, brown people, and poor people who are, it's crazy because Walmart, I believe, is open. All these grocery stores are open, and these are the people who they don't make enough to save up, to go to school, and they don't have enough time to get a second job. That pays well. Now they're in a different situation because a lot of people's kids are out of school. Daycares are closing. Depends on what area you're in.
Right.
Now you're in a different situation when you live at home, but then you're going to work every day, potentially exposing your kids who may have comorbidities to this virus. And you're stuck in the exact same cycle, no matter if it's Christmas, pandemic day, damn Revelations, Armageddon, you gonna be at Walmart. And that's to me the same reason that we're talking like that people of color and poor people, or at least people from poor backgrounds, end up overly occupying the military. They're represented as far as the demographics are concerned in the military. Exact same reasons. And it has to stop. It has to stop. We got to start. Not saying that we don't need essential workers, but now we call them essential workers, right? That's what it's called in this administration, ironically enough, for being a Republican administration. But last I checked, what have we been sold? That these jobs are not meant to be full-time jobs, that these jobs are not necessary. How hard is it to flip a burger is what we're talking? How hard is it to be in a grocery store? How hard is it? Motherfucker, clearly it's difficult than you thought, and it's a little bit more necessary than you thought. If society has decided that it cannot function without the McDonald's around the corner from me, without Postmates, without Grubhub or Uber Eats or Uber or Lyft in general. These people make the world go round. And you can't deny that. And in my humble opinion, we should be paying them as such. They should be given benefits as such. When you're considered essential, that means we cannot do without. And when you cannot do without somebody, you pay them accordingly.
Stop sounding like a communist, Niko.
I guess I'm sounding like Trump. Trump's talking about something. He said, "Man, maybe we should own these corporations if we're going to give them money." he almost risked it all, didn't he? They were like, "Hold up, what? Boy, don't say that again. Don't say that." He's like, "What?
Let's go left to Biden. Let's go left to Biden now."
Bro, he's already winning that game. Unfortunately, he's figured out real quick the best strategy against the Democrats is just tell 50% of the truth. Tell all the truth about their party. Tell some of the truth about the Republican establishment. Just lie about most of the stuff that he does. And it's better because what the Democrats do, they lie about the Democratic establishment, they lie about the Republicans, they lie about Trump, even when it's easier to just tell the truth about him. But then if you tell the truth about him, you're going to tell the truth about yourself, so you can't do it. So it puts them in a precarious predicament. But with that being said, Steve, tell everybody where they can find you at, your social media and all that good stuff.
Well, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Steven Orozco. You see my name written right there. You could just type that in. There's a period between my name and on Instagram. There's an underscore between my name on Twitter. But for the most part, you could Google me and find all the links. I wrote a piece on Medium recently. It's called "I Owe the Democrats Nothing." You can read up on some of my decisions, reasons for my decisions to not support the Democratic nominee Joseph Biden. And yeah, I'll be here if anybody ever wants to argue over some politics, because it's time that, we shake the table some more.
Oh yeah, I love it, man. R.I.P. to your blue check.
Yeah,
I don't
they
know if
took
you've
that quick.
heard, but it's basically become established that it's a requirement for you to be a complete and total idiot to get a blue check.
Wow.
If you sound too smart consecutively in too many tweets in a row, it seems like Twitter bots will come find you and they're like, hold up, whoa. It's too. That's why Tulsi takes like 6-day breaks sometimes in between tweets because you say too much smart stuff in a row. And you're not the only one, by the way, who's had their blue check taken from them. I've seen a lot of people. I've never seen it before until you were the first one I noticed. I'm like, hold up. Are there some other people getting their blue check? And there have been a few people who ran for office, people who were writers. They just inexplicably had their checks taken away from them, which is crazy because I'm like, you didn't say you weren't running for office again.
Right.
Like we have no idea what you're going to do next, but that doesn't, you didn't all of a sudden become a fake person, a non-verified person because you're not running for office again. It's crazy. So, but other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into that live stream segment of Mikasa and Sukasa. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you go follow Stevens Orozco on Twitter and on Facebook. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.